Welcome to Feeling Seen, the podcast about the movies that make us feel seen. I'm your host, Jordan Crucchiola. I'm joined today by comedian Sierra Katow, whose new comedy special is called FUNT. You might recognize Sierra as an actor. She appeared in the Sex Lives of College Girls, or you might recognize her voice from Raya and the Last Dragon. Sierra has also been a writer for shows like Earth to Ned, and she is feeling seen by the little girls at the heart of two beloved animated films, Lilo and Stitch and My Neighbor Totoro. We'll talk about the different ways she identifies with those characters, as well as the joys and pressures of identifying as a comedian. Sierra Katow, what else do the people need to know about you before we get started? You have a breadth of experience and skill.
Oh, so excited to be here, Jordan, by the way. Wonderful. Thank you for the sweet intro. I mean, well, here's the fun thing that I didn't tell you that I know you from. I was a longtime producer on Cameron Esposito's Query, and you had like such an amazing episode, and I just fell in love with you on that episode,
oh my God,
and
awesome.
So did the whole audience. So that too, I used to produce Query, which is now has come to a close.
R.I.P.
We loved it.
Are you in mourning over Query ending? Or are you like, it was a good run?
Oh, I mean, yes, of course I'm in mourning, but I think Cameron ran that for 6 years, like over 350 episodes or something. So I totally understand where they were like, hey, maybe it's time to wrap it up.
I absolutely loved that, doing that episode. And this is perfect because I remember like talking through like my partnership and the sort of context of my situation at the time. I remember kind of like, a sort of toss-off remark at the end of the conversation. Cameron being like, well, keep us updated. Update, we got married.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was like, you said wife, so that makes sense. Yeah.
Update. If you listen to that episode of Query with me and Cameron, and you're like, I wonder where it went with that girl. We got married. Is where it went.
What a time.
Well,
congratulations.
So perfect.
Congratulations.
The world has been waiting to see how my story ended with that.
Beautiful.
And the bottom line is it didn't end. It continues on.
It continued. Beautiful. I mean, I love to hear it, and it's so wonderful to be in person hearing that news, and just really makes Query all kind of conclude in like a beautiful way.
Truly,
so,
I was kind of bummed. Like a tiny part of me was bummed when it was announced that it was discontinuing, and I was like, you know what? I really was gonna DM her at a certain point and be like, you told me to keep you updated, so just so you know, we're married. Right. So it's a real nice button to be able to put on, because that was one of my favorite conversations I feel like I've had as a media professional.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
So thank you for the part you played in that tremendous
scheduling
experience.
Mainly, but yes.
Hey, it doesn't happen without that. It doesn't happen without you.
Thank you.
It doesn't happen without you. It doesn't happen without producer Marissa.
Yes,
Marissa. It takes the village. So, okay, we're podcasting colleagues as well.
Oh, yeah.
Now, do you have your own podcast?
Oh, well, so I used to have a one where I would do like kind of one-on-one interviews that I also included called Stay Positive. They're still up there. That was kind of a pre-pandemic, but also pandemic, situation.
Yeah.
But currently, I also just started one with a couple friends, Ify Wadiwe and Mike Cabalon, called. Well, you probably know.
Friend of the show.
Them. Okay,
Max
great.
Fun Pro, Ify Wadiwe.
Yeah, right, of course.
Great, yes.
And we just do Top Chef. Recaps, and so we're doing season 21, which is currently airing.
I think everyone should have a podcast. It's a fun way to spend time with friends.
Oh, yes. I think these are two friends who I would see variously, and like little things here and there. And now we have like a weekly long time to hang and discuss Top Chef, and it's a fantasy league, so we have teams and we are very competitive.
Wow, I did not know the synergy that would happen in this podcast.
Me neither.
Of our parallel lives.
Yes, same stuff.
to Query and Max Fun.
Yeah.
LA is a small town, you guys. LA is simply a small town. In terms of work, I will get started. Tell the people a bit about FUNT.
Oh, thank you for asking about FUNT.
Yes.
Yeah, my debut comedy special. I am a stand-up comedian, and that's kind of what I started into, the gateway into podcasting and stand-up comedy. So I with Comedy Dynamics, who's a great production company. We filmed this almost a year ago-ish, and then now it is out finally. And I've been doing comedy stand-up for like 13 years, so it's kind of a culmination of a lot.
Since you were like a teenager, right?
Sure. sure. Yes. That's what they tell me. But yeah, no. So it was a kind of a culmination of all that. Our stand-up kind of my journey. I talk a little bit about that. You know, my family, make fun of all of them. My parents were in the audience, and my sister and my uncle, and a lot of people that
They get some good spotlighting.
Yes. Yeah. I told the producer, I was like, yeah, they'll be right there. So, you know, catch them every time I make fun of them.
Well, I feel like the classic question, were they aware of what were you were like, you will be involved, but non-specifically, or here's the material about you?
Right. No, they didn't have a script. I think for sure they were like, because, okay, so they've been with me on this journey as much. Very supportive family, so I'm very lucky in that department. But I think I was counting on the fact that they can't hear too well.
Okay, great.
Like, you know, my mom was always like, oh, you look so cute, you know, but yeah, I couldn't catch the last part of what you said. So I was like, okay, great.
Don't worry.
This is my time. Yeah. Say everything you need to say. But then, of course, they watch it back, and then the audio's a lot better, and they're like, oh. But no, they're great sports, and we all make fun of each other, and that's why I got into comedy, I think, is because they're funny, and we show, you know, we communicate often. It's easier when you're making fun of each other and joking, so I think that helped a lot.
Okay.
But, you know, it's asking a lot. For
Good.
Sure.
I'm glad you can still have holidays together.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. You know,
we haven't had one to broach yet, but okay.
Exactly.
Well, the characters that you brought to discuss today, it's always so fun when people when it becomes a multi-character episode to find the harmonies between the two. And you brought Lilo and Stitch, and also My Neighbor Totoro, the characters of Lilo and Mei, respectively.
Yes.
Two small girls with creature friends.
Creature friends, that is so true, and younger sisters, right? And then, but yeah, you're right, tiny little girls.
Yeah.
Like younger than 5? They're like 5?
Like really little. And these were 2 blind spots of mine.
Oh, good.
So fortunately, I was finally prompted to watch both this Miyazaki classic and Lilo and Stitch. I was watching it with my wife and a friend, and she was like, wow, I really didn't catch a lot of this when I was little. I was like, oh, Lilo and Stitch, this movie for adults? This this hilarious grown-up comedy of animation? Great movie. I can see why it's so popular.
I mean, it is great. I think in the words of Jacob Elordi when he was talking about Elvis, when he was playing Elvis, that's how I learned about Elvis. Lilo and Stitch. That's kind of how our maybe generation came to know.
I'm here to answer your newspaper ad.
Elvis Presley was a model citizen. I've compiled a list of his traits for you to practice. Number 1 is dancing.
I can't talk now, dear. I'm waiting for someone to answer my ad. That's why I'm here.
Hands on your hips. Now follow my lead.
And so you mention it in your comedy special, the theme of being little sister does get played there. Is this a core part of the identity? Like,
I think so.
I am a personality little sister.
Personality, yeah. Well, okay, yeah. I think it is like, you know.
And what does that mean to you?
Ooh. I mean, okay, so my sister, shout out to Melissa, she's 5.5 years my senior. So growing up, you know, superior. Always her word is law.
Got it.
She's kind of almost the third parent because so much older, like 5.5 years as a child. You're like, I mean, you might as well be 100. I don't know.
I shouldn't have yelled at you.
We're sisters. It's our job.
Yeah, well, from now on.
I like you better as a sister than a mom.
Yeah?
And you like me better as a sister than a rabbit, right?
Oh. Yes. Yes, I do.
My sister's 6 years younger than me, and we didn't get along. I was a bitch of an older sister. We didn't get along until I went off to college because it was just we are roommates.
Right.
We have nothing in common. Like, you're so much younger than me. Our phases of life are so disparate. So it really is like, it's like having another adult in the house, I would imagine. Because I felt like I was like, God, we got this kid running around here.
Yeah, what's
Jesus.
This one doing? Did you have other siblings or is it just 2 of you?
I have an older half brother, and I remember like when I was little, like growing up with him, like it was that thing of like wanting to do whatever Jason did, and wanting to just like follow him around and having him be the cool older brother, like. And then I was completely impatient to that same experience to my younger sister, unfairly.
I mean, I can imagine. I think like yeah, I got the benefit of like, yeah, cooler older sister. Anytime you're hanging out with her, it's cool. You know what I mean? Like, whatever you're doing, that's cool. Like, she liked Smallville, and she liked, so Smallville was cool. And like, she liked the Beastie Boys. Beastie Boys, very cool, I think it's, yeah, it was like, I got that benefit. And but she was also such a patient. She was very, very good at being an older sister. She says she still has dreams of me as like a child, and like I'm like in danger, and I'm like not listening. You know what I mean? Like she's still, and she has like a baby now who's 2, and and like we're both the babies in her dream. Like I'm still like a baby who needs help.
Wow.
So clearly, it's part of her identity. It's part of mine.
Do you feel? Are you like, I get that? Are you like still? Or are you like, no, I am the baby who needs help?
I mean, a little bit. I'm the baby.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's like, I get the sense that, like, in her world, and, if you go home, you kind of revert. There's a little bit of, like, I get to kind of chill. But, of course, in the real world, I have to be an adult. But, I would say this, like, I think growing up and as I become older and I become those ages that she was, it's, like, hilarious thinking, oh, yeah, I guess I'm, like, an adult now. But then, B, it's also thinking, like, I got so much advantage of, like, seeing her go through stuff. Like, also, she would say, like, yeah, I didn't know there was life after 6th grade. So, like, I did know there was life after 6th grade because she was living that life, so that was very helpful. And then the fact that, like, I remember she would even try to, I think when we were, one of the funny childhood stories is, like, she would try to teach me, like, math when I was, like, a kindergartner and, like, obviously didn't know math at that time. And so she would, like, try to bring me, like, her division things and be like, you got to do this, and pretend to be a teacher. And at some point I was, like, obviously so confused and, like, frustrated. I was like, Melissa, please, I don't want to do this anymore. She was like, who's Melissa? She was fully in character as the teacher. So she definitely, she was like, I'm gonna prepare you. So yeah, lots of like the two of us, I think, being in our own world. I was also like a younger cousin of many cousins, so I think like that identity of being like the last one in line.
Right.
So a little bit of like being like, oh, wait for me, but also like, yeah, I recognize I was so lucky to get the preview of life stages.
Were you the adventurous child that both of these characters were? Like Mei repeatedly, like, they live in a haunted house, and there are at first there are the like the soot sprites.
Oh yes,
the little soot sprites, and floating around the house.
You've got soot sprites in your house.
Soot sprites? The black puffballs? About this big, and they scurry everywhere when you enter a room?
That's right. They live in old empty houses and run all over the place, covering everything with dirt. I used to be able to see them when I was your age. So you've seen them too. That's very interesting.
So they're a kind of ghost then?
Don't worry, dear. They're nothing to be afraid of. If they decide you're nice people, they won't harm you. And after a while, they'll just go away. I bet they're up in the rafters right now having a talk about whether or not they should move out.
Hear that, May? They're gonna move out. I don't want them to leave. What if a huge one came chasing after you? So what? I'm not afraid. Right. Then you can go to the bathroom by yourself in the middle of the night.
And then they, hearing strange sounds and becoming aware of, like, other beings in the forest around. And, her dad is like, oh, make yourself laugh to, like, make the things that you're afraid go away. She's like, I'm not scared. I'm not scared. And she's genuinely not.
Everybody try laughing. Then whatever scares you will go away.
But Dad, I'm not scared. What? I'm not scared.
And then you have Lilo, who is, like, ready to adopt a gremlin. And is just ready to charge into any sense of danger, total chaos agent.
Wouldn't you like a different dog? We have better dogs, dear.
Not better than him. He can talk. Say hello.
Dogs can't talk, dear.
He did.
Does it have to be this dog?
Yes, he's good. I can tell.
Was that more you?
I definitely, I was outdoors, like, loving to, I think, my first pet was a lizard, and then thereafter I did have dogs, but then I had one dog first, and then that dog ran away, and then there was another dog. And, so I think I love to, like, run around in the backyard with the dog and, like, do lots of that at that age. But I think mostly I remember watching those as kids and being like kind of jealous of them.
Yeah.
Like of Lilo character being like, oh, she's so like free and kind of like, loud and having her own opinions and her own world.
Yeah.
And I think I wouldn't say that I was exactly like that, but I definitely like saw that and was like, ooh, that's what I want. Like to be kind of an outspoken kid who kind of like is able to have their tantrums, but also like exist in a world of their own. Like, I don't know, something about that was very cool to me. Like, oh, that's cool. I don't think I was as free as those characters were, but yes, I think I like identified with it in a way of like, oh, how nice it would be to be able to kind of just like be that opinionated.
So do you felt like you wanted to be more opinionated than you perhaps expressively were at the time? Or were you like, no, I was pretty free to share. I was just maybe just held back a little bit.
Yeah, maybe I wanted to be a little bit more. I think there was like, obvious restrictions. I think in both of them, what I maybe don't relate to as much, and thankfully is like my parents were very present and were very like involved and didn't have sickness or anything to pull them away. So I think there was more rules laid down and maybe less of a freedom to be insane,
to be just feral,
feral child and running around with an alien, but or spirits.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the kind of like freedom was definitely something that I was like, oh, that is cool. Like as a kid, you're always like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to just like be an orphan? And then you're like, no. As an
but
adult, no.
there's like, even when it's like a difficult orphan story, there's like this romanticizing of like being an orphan for like kids in movies sometimes.
Sure. I mean, well, I think also like I mean this is, I don't mean to bring up completely something different, but then like everybody's revisiting Nickelodeon shows right now.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I think the thing that we love so much about those shows is like, and that they say is kind of a problem, was like there weren't a lot of parents present in those shows, but that was like the fun of it too. It was like, like iCarly.
In The Sweet Life, it's just like these kids like running the show in a hotel. Yeah.
The mom's busy. She's got a job.
All these crazy characters in the hotel effectively raising these kids.
Right. And so there's something about that, I guess, if you are watching from your home where you've got rules and you got to go to school. You're what if I was on a ship?
That's, such a like fair point, because like even in Rugrats,
Sure.
like it's like babies on their own. Like the interior lives of infants.
Right. Why would they be supervised?
Parentless independent child representation, a hallmark of children's television.
Oh my God. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, definitely overrepresentation.
Like unless it's like a movie about a family persevering.
Right.
Like unless like the nuclear family construct and its anxieties is part of it. It's not just like, oh yeah, kids just hanging out with their parents because they're around.
Right. That would be boring. Nobody wants to see that. Get out of here. But yeah, totally. I think it's the dream to, as a kid to just grow up, right, and just be able to like do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So like where kids get a job or some kid wins like a lot of money, it's like, yeah, I get to go to work, it's like way better than school.
You're right. Like kid becomes professional baseball player.
Like Mike. Oh my God. Yeah. Becomes professional.
Yeah. Like Little Big League, like the boy who becomes like a professional pitcher. Like boy comes into preposterous sum of money and becomes like a lord of his own fiefdom. Like beautiful. The whole movie North, like I want new parents and I'm going to set out into this world to like shop for parents.
Right. Oh my God.
Wow. Children's programming really teaches us some weird relationship dynamics with our parents.
That was what was going on, I guess. Yeah. I wonder if that's still the case. Like, is that what kids are watching now? Maybe? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to unpack this on my own. You mentioned too, like that, like when I brought up both the titles, you were like, amazing worlds. So talk to me about being drawn to these really like, open fantasy scenarios, and then obviously in animation, which is a realm of imagination, and not bound by the constraints of our corporeal human meat reality.
Meat reality. Yeah. I mean, I think. Well, for one, I definitely grew up watching a lot of Miyazaki, and I actually just rewatched Spirited Away recently, which is one of my favorites. Oh my God, so good. So, I think that those worlds were always fascinating, and I think I was probably, mainly watching kids stuff and animation, and so I think I really gravitated towards animation because it allowed for that kind of adventure, and I wasn't seeing much else, in live action that was going to be like that crazy. Yeah. And then, I mean, I think for sure, one of the through lines too with Lilo and Mei of Totoro, it's like I was definitely so background on me and my heritage. So I'm Asian American, I'm Japanese and Chinese American. And then both sides, I'm fourth generation, which means my great grandparents were the ones who immigrated here. So I've definitely have Asian heritage, Japanese and Chinese, but there's also the fact that we're pretty separated from it.
Right.
But then we're also kind of created this maybe version that is, third culture or whatever you would want to call it. But it's there's specifically a Japanese American culture and a Chinese American culture that's different than, white American and Chinese and China culture.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. So I was always kind of looking for that. And I think though I'm not Hawaiian in any way and I'm not native Hawaiian anyway, I think also we had a lot of family friends who were from Hawaii. And so watching that, I was like, oh, yeah, well, this is anytime we would visit them, it was a lot more Asian people who were American. And so in my child brain, I was like, oh, okay, so is this where I'm from? There was just not really an understanding because obviously here, I grew up in California, in Southern California, where there's a lot more Asian Americans than in the larger U.S.
Sure.
But still was kind of confusing of wait, so then what am I exactly? Because I know when I watch things that are or, when people bring up fully Chinese or Japanese, I don't fully understand that either. And my parents, my grandparents didn't even really speak Chinese or Japanese, so we didn't even really have language in our culture. But food, yes. But yeah, so I think there was kind of a grasping for it. Oh, she kind of looks like me, this girl, and she speaks, like I do. So there's also, it seems like an Asian American thing. And then when I was watching Totoro, it was dubbed version. So I'm fully, I guess she's American. Yeah. Even though she's not. So, I think it was misunderstanding, but also finally seeing, these kind of cute little characters that I loved and then also kind of feeling like I could identify with them a bit. So there was that. Then the worlds themselves, that was just, I think, fun to see. The fact that these imaginative creatures and things like that and loving just, I think, especially the Miyazaki worlds, that was always so fascinating and visceral, and you can when they're eating something and when they're crying and eating, you're I cry and eat like that. Oh man, yeah, the crying and eating thing, and that is something I come back to a lot. Even that bow short. I know I'm going off to another thing.
Oh no,
but the eating at the end and the crying, I'm oh yeah, that's what I do best. So I think that whole thing felt really, I still think those images are always there because of how important that type of world was to me. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about animation just a couple times with people bringing characters on the show. And there seems to be a through line of sort of what in conventional live action, there wasn't a place for me, and that's usually people. It's typically been guests who are not white. And Ali Carvalho came on and brought Moana, and she was it was kind of listen, I know everybody knows Moana. She's but seriously,
Sure.
I haven't had an overabundance of options to choose from, and she grew up really loving animation generally because the permission to imagine and the permission of all these broad possibility structures in non-realities felt like it gave her so much more room to fit than in the conventional, again, live action films and TV she saw.
Right. Yeah, for sure. It's there wasn't really much there. And if there was, it was very sometimes side characters where you're I don't really feel like we're getting to know them very well. And maybe it's just a joke, So yeah, for sure. I think the animation, open the door to that a lot more. And the fact that, also I think if something was dubbed in animation, it's a little bit easier to watch than something dubbed in live action, too. So
yeah. I kind of have a dub in live action will actually kind of okay, I tried.
Sure.
I can't, but I tried.
It's tough.
But but even still, I it's so much easier to find a dubbed Miyazaki than a subtitled Miyazaki, and I would kind of much rather prefer that. But that's neither here nor there. I love a sub. I love a sub over a dub.
Fair. I definitely it's that's how I was introduced to Miyazaki, and so I think the first time somebody brought up sub, I was wait, what? And then now I'm okay. So I saw Boy and the Heron in sub, just to be an adult, and to come over to your world and be I'm cool too, No, but so I can appreciate that more now. But I think, at the beginning,
a great gateway drug.
Realize
Great gateway drug.
For sure.
Now, so you're, obviously it's a big overarching question to be just growing up and figuring out how to, like, be a person generally, and then be like, so I have this amalgamation of cultures that make me who I am. Like, I'm of so many places. Do I belong to any one specific place? I would imagine, kind of thing. And then you start doing comedy at a very young age, which feels like, you know, the grand forum for figuring shit out. It seems like, in terms of, like, the live arts. It's like, I love attention. I love to be on a stage. Comedy seems terrifying. It seems like a bridge I could never cross.
Oh, no.
So what was it that pulled you to comedy so young?
Oh, I mean, I think I remember seeing, like, I think we got cable when around the same time. So I was probably like 16. That was very exciting. So got Comedy Central. Ooh, what is this? I didn't really know much about stand-up. I think I saw Ellen DeGeneres' Here and Now.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first things I was like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
I was and I had already known who she was, but I don't think I understood that her origins were stand-up.
Yeah.
Thought she started as a Dory the Fish. But apparently not. No, so that was really cool. And I think, you know, I didn't really have a musical talent. I was an avid basketball player, but at my 5'1" height, it was not going to happen for me.
Right, yeah.
So I kind of was looking for, you know, a new thing to do, and it felt like, oh, well, you know, stand-up's just talking. Like, I don't have to have a skill. So I thought, yeah, why not? And, you know, and again, I credit my family, both my mom and my dad, very funny. My, like, grandpa, my mom's dad was, like, a cartoonist.
Oh, wow.
As a profession, yeah. So he was always, like, funny, and kind of as the patriarch of that family, everybody, you know, was funny too. And I think, you know, and various, you know, cousins and extended family members, I think, all shared that commonality. So that was always a part of, like, something that I looked up to. And I think my mom was always, you know, talking about, my parents would tell me that they would go see comedy, like, later after I started, and that was, like, kind of funny, but also, like,
That's part of my parents' past lives too. Like, when they were young, like, before they started having kids, they went and saw so much comedy.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Where
did they go?
I remember Sam Kinison. Like, I knew who Sam Kinison was from such a young age. My mom brought me, like, a Sam Kinison pin from a stand-up special that they went to, like, a stand-up performance, like, when he was on tour once in Portland. And, like, they fucking would never now. Like, I don't think maybe since I was little, like, they would drop me off with my grandparents when they would go see comedy, but, like,
cute.
Yeah, like, what is the parent? They have this era. They're like, I'm young, I go see comedy.
I know. Ew. Stop.
Get out of here. You're like, parents are not welcome in my audience.
Please. No, that is so cute. Yeah, I feel like, you know, it was such a thing, and I think it still is in a different version now, and it goes in and out, right? But yeah, so I think maybe they had talked about it in a way where I had kind of, you know, been like, oh, I guess that's a thing. But anyway, I think it all kind of came together at the same time when I decided to start. And I had done like student government as you know, as a nerd child. And so was very, you know, like to public speak, would throw in some jokes, get some votes. And then, yeah, so I think I like the idea of, you know, open mic, no one's going to make you audition, really. Yeah. Like, you can just kind of go up, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. But, you know, I think that, you know, it invites a lot of people in. But, you know, I liked that openness to it. And again, I think I had a little bit of like, I'm a little quiet, you know, in class, you know, I was such a good student, and you're not supposed to talk. Yeah. And, you know, I think it was like, and then I get a microphone and I get to speak and like say, you know, so I think that was very empowering. But yeah, you know, and that all kind of, it just seemed like the right thing, the easiest entry in, because I was not like a theater person or a singer or a dancer. So yes.
When you started, did you bring a persona to the stage when you were starting as a kid? Or like, you know, we had the comedian Caitlin Palufo on here recently, and she talked about, she was on recently, and we also had the comedian Jackie Cation. And Jackie Cation talked about how, like, you know, a family member of hers would be like, hey, I don't want to talk to Johnny Carson right now. Like, just talk to me as Jackie.
Whoa, that's
like,
so funny.
Carrying the persona over into real life, just like kind of and like having to check herself. So have you is there a stage Sierra and a you Sierra in like a demonstrably separate way?
I feel like it was pretty similar in the beginning, just because I didn't know how to change too much, probably.
Okay.
But I think yes, and that always will be the case probably because
I feel like you have to.
Yeah, I mean, what you're not
You're
gonna
standing
be
up there
doing
making jokes about
stand-up.
your fucking parents in front of them.
Right,
so,
right. Not doing that to their face in one-on-one.
Like, I'm a caricature of me making jokes about you right now.
Right, and it's also prepared to, you know, so there's that element. But I'm not like completely different. But I don't know, it changes too. So maybe some days I'm being wacky and like very different. But yeah, I would say as far as that goes, you know, because it just kind of came from like giving speeches, maybe it's more similar. But yeah, you know, I think also there, and like Cameron would talk about this a lot, was like, you know, there's also the person on stage, and then people expect to meet that person maybe if they have seen you perform.
Yeah.
And that's hilarious because I'm not, you know, as prepared and polished off stage. I do not have jokes.
Workshopped you meeting me.
Exactly.
I have gone through that.
Yeah, we can do that if you want to do this. Like I can, you know, do it a couple times. We can work it out. But oh boy, it is not, you know, as confident, not as, you know, sharp and witty, of course. Though I would like to think I am. But yeah, no, of course, that part is very different. Yeah, but I mean, even, I don't know, do you feel like you have different, like, podcast versus, because people meet you and they go, oh, I love you so much, right? Like,
I aspire to, and I have been told, which makes me very happy, whether it's, like, things that I'm writing or podcasting or me in real life, pretty much exactly the same.
Wow.
It's high energy.
Lovely. Yeah, I mean,
high energy.
It's a great person to be, so stick with it.
Oh, well, thanks. I thank you very much. But in your special, you talk about like in this, you know, how much is amped up for the show or how much, but like you talk about, you know, getting into like maybe I'd be less awkward if I like was doing this stuff on stage, or like maybe you like, you know, getting up here because I want you to like me kind of thing. Have you found, what have been the sort of tools you've developed in comedy? Have they rolled over into your real life as a growing adult?
Right.
To like, well, like I've armored myself in these way as a comedian that like I actually like poured it into my real life. I have like kind of developed in ways that I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean,
been completely stunted by and held back. I don't want to bias an answer, of course.
I mean, yeah, I would hope it did. The thing is, it's also weird because it's like, okay, I started at 16, so I think a lot of it is just like also growing as a human.
True, yeah.
But you know, yes, it is very true that like, because I, you know, when I got into it, it was like, oh, like it would be so great if I could also just be that, you know, confident off stage and have that carry into my life. And I hope it has a little bit, but for sure it did not as much. My expectation was much higher, I think. Like I was like, I really am going to be like so funny and cool now. And of course not. And it's like, especially I think when you meet people who have seen your stand-up, or like I remember when I went to college, there was a talent show that I did, and it was like kind of a funny introduction to a lot of my soon-to-be classmates.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so in that way, it was great. But I have a very close friend, Daniel, who said like, yeah, I saw you perform, and then I was like, oh, she's so cool, and then I met you.
Okay, yeah.
Which is the relationship we have. We love to roast each other. But I think it was very funny, which is so true. It is true that like I have to catch up to the person that I am on stage, right? Where it's like, oh, I thought it would be like very easy to then, you know, meet people. It does kind of help that maybe initial introduction if you're looking to meet people in that capacity. I don't know who's doing that. But other than that, I don't know if it really does much else. And if anything, I think it's kind of like, you know, it kind of creates a weird world where you're like, oh, well, now I have to do this. And then now I like can't hang out with friends. So maybe it kind of messes you up. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's for sure like, it's so funny how the social awkwardness just never leaves, and it will never leave me. And that's how it goes, I guess.
It's time for a quick break, but I'll be right back with more from Sierra Katow. Then I'll have one quick thing before I go about, I don't normally make the one quick thing a self-promotional space, but I just want to talk a little bit about the episode of Screen Drafts that I will be appearing on soon, because we tackle a mighty topic, movies booed at Cannes, and we had a lot of fun. So I'm just going to give you guys a little tease of that at the end, so stick around.
Soundheap with John Luke Roberts is a real podcast made up of fake podcasts. Like, if you had a cupboard in your lower back, what would you keep in it?
So I'm going to say mugs.
A little yogurt and a spoon.
A small handkerchief that was given to me by my grandmother on her deathbed.
Maybe some spare honey.
I'd keep batteries in it. I'd pretend to be a toy.
If I had a cupboard in my lower back, I'd probably fill it with spines.
If you had a cupboard in your lower back, what would you keep in it? Doesn't exist. We made it up for Sound Heap with John Luke Roberts, an award-winning comedy podcast from Maximum Fun, made up of hundreds of stupid podcasts. Listen and subscribe to Sound Heap with John Luke Roberts, now.
Oh my gosh, hi, it's me, Dave Holmes, host of the pop culture game show Troubled Waters. On Troubled Waters, we play a whole host of games, like one where I describe a show using a limerick, and our guests have to figure out what it is. Let's do one right now. What show am I talking about? This podcast has game after game, and brilliant guests who come play him. The host is named Dave. It could be your fave, so try it. Life won't be the same.
Big Business starring Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin.
Close, but no.
Oh, is it Troubled Waters, the pop culture quiz show with all your favourite comedians?
Yes! Troubled Waters is the answer.
To this question and all of my life's problems.
Now, legally, we actually can't guarantee that, but you can find it on MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
One of I will say my favorite part of your special is when you mentioned talking to this other comic who's like, are you worried that because there are more Asian women doing comedy now that there's not room for you? And you were like, well, you're a white man named James.
Right.
So and pointing out that like three of you literally have late night talk shows or like have in the past few years. So like that I was like, well, that's just the perfect summation of both, like, it seems like the situation, the context, and the person with the audacity to make that remark to you.
Sure. Yes, love to hear it. Various encounters that way. Yeah. I mean, I think there's like, it's such a funny thing, I think, through the years of like, you've been at this for a minute, and I think there's been so much sentiment of like, oh, well, for you, it's going to be so easy because there's not that many, or, whatever it is, or like, when people say that like diversity is great, so it's going to help you so much.
Yeah.
Or like, you're a woman, oh, that's like so easy now. It's like, I mean, sure, if, let everyone know, I guess. Because I don't know, I've been at this for a while. But, and I understand everybody comes at it from such a, like, personal place where they're just like in their own heads thinking like, oh man, it's so hard for me. Maybe it's if I were this or that, it would be different and whatever. But for sure, I think that's been a funny journey, like seeing how everybody like seems to claim things are going to be better and it doesn't always get better. And
it's like, I guess it's like, well, listen, I guess things aren't so much like so much better on my end, so much as like you're noticing how you're just not that good.
Sure,
dude.
Yikes.
And like,
the realities.
Maybe you just have like slightly smaller of a permission structure to be mediocre. Which like, or you have all the permission in the world still, but now you have to be aware that you're mediocre in a way that you're fighting me about because you are sad about that.
Oh yeah. No, exactly. It's like, I guess we all got to kind of look inward these days. I hate to tell you, but it has to happen.
In terms of like obviously through your comedy, but like through writing too, like you writing for television and acting on television, like in terms of your own creation, what are you finding like, again, as like 16 to 29, what are you finding is like most important to you to be like, this is the Sierra I am putting forward as like a creative professional, and like here's the thing I fucking want to do.
Oh. No, this is always like a question because it's I feel like it's like so different, changes all the time.
Yeah.
Like, there's, a moment where I really was like, doing the thing of a stand-up comedian who makes their own show where they're kind of like acting a version of themselves. Like that was really hot at the time.
Yeah.
Had a project in development. I think like for those things though, I kind of through
like
that
Pamela
process,
Adlon, like this is me. Yeah.
It's like kind of different, but there's definitely some parallels, a more exaggerated version. I think I went through like whatever, development of that and was kind of like, oh yeah, this is like really hard because you're kind of at the mercy of this project and it's not, and I think with stand-up you have a little bit more control. Maybe you're putting out what you want to put out and maybe you've processed the thing already so you're making a joke about it or whatever. I felt even still with FUNT coming out, I was like, that was a little vulnerable even though it's a lot of jokey joke stuff. But like I think for me I'm a little private, so I think when it comes to all that stuff I'm like, oh yeah, this is actually a lot. I forgot about that. And so I think with the show thing like that for a while was it, and I learned a lot from that process. process. And then, recently with like just, because I was just in a writer's room that was like so fun, and like I just liked that process of like being with really funny people. And
I'm glad you were in a fun room. That's nice.
Oh yeah. And it was like, not anything that I would like have personal story to tell, because it was like fantasy and, but I think it was like just, that was really great. So I think I'm kind of in a weird limbo where it's like I don't really know what the thing would be, because I've gotten to do a lot of things, and I'm grateful for that. I'm glad the special came out, and that was very personal. So I'm kind of maybe more in the zone of like maybe a little less personal stuff.
There's obviously a podcast about like, this is what made me feel seen, and representation, and like the squishy question of that, and like, and that's nice, and I love getting into that stuff. But then there's also just like, you're also allowed to, as a creator, just wanting to make something that makes you laugh. Like, it doesn't have to be about like, this is how I really want to get in touch with who I am through the thing that I make, or how I want to reach people on this visceral level that I was missing as a young child. So I guess that would be, I mean, you did kind of answer it, I guess, like the notion of like, are you more excited by the notion of like really getting into the interiority, or is it like, not really, like that's not actually my joy as an artist, like, because it doesn't have to be either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it depends, and it kind of comes and goes. Like, I think there's cycles of like, oh yeah, I need to get into that because it's not being, we're missing that right now.
Yeah, we're missing this thing.
And then like,
and that's a lot of
really
pressure.
have that. Yeah, and it's a lot of pressure. And then I think sometimes it's like, oh, you know what, there's great things being made that are kind of speaking on this, and I'm okay over here a little bit. And hey, maybe this is maybe my what I envy in somebody like the James, comedian or whatever, where they can kind of do, I feel like there's like having to be, speaking for whatever, there's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
I think with like, for instance, when I was working on that one project or anything with like, where you are kind of being put forth as like, okay, this is like, you're an Asian American woman.
You can speak to this.
Exactly. It's like, to some extent, there are some things I do know, and I think have not been said, and it would be great to like have other people, validate that and be like, yeah, that's right. That's how I felt, not seen or whatever. Right. But then at the same time, I had like a lot of anxiety of like, or everybody's going to just hate you so much because you can't speak on this and your identity is not everybody's. And then, you alienate your own people.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, I'm kind of like, it's more from a place of like fear where you're like, oh God, I don't know if I want to like be that, want to stick their neck out there for this thing, even though, yes, I think this could be great, but maybe it's not me. And, there's so much like internal stuff with, I think, where Asian American content is right now too, where like everyone like hates, well, it's not hates each other, but I think there's a lot of like, if someone comes out with something, they're like, well, that's not my identity. And that's like, that's true. It isn't. And it's not mine either. But I think it's still in the pressure areas of like, it's still not enough where you can't see it as just one facet of the whole identity. Yeah. So maybe that's I think that'll definitely get better soon. And, again, we honor those who came before us, as we always say, because they really had to deal with that. But yeah, so I think there's always stuff, but I have seen myself, I think, go through, I think the different versions of like, oh yeah, I'm really down to like get into battle mode and like really fight for this project, or hey, that was tough. Let's take a little breather and let's have some fun and remember we're funny, and then come back to it and get in the battle mode again.
I think a real designation of progress for me, like real sustained progress, will be when things can just like, that like star or feature stories or people who are not the expected figures, and they can just be bad, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Like I loved Drive Away Dolls. They came out this year.
Oh shoot, yeah.
Seemed like pretty polarizing. It seemed there was a lot of people like, this kind of movie fucking sucked, but like I loved it. I had a blast. Thank goodness. It was originally, I guess, called Drive Away Dykes when it was originally written in the 2000s. And at the end, like the title card like falls away to reveal a Drive Away Dykes instead of Drive Away Dolls, which is very fun. And I was like, listen, if we can just have a movie that a bunch of people don't actually like, that's just about lesbians in a silly sort of whodunit or whodunwhat situation, great. Let's give them another crack at it. Right. But when things can just come and go and have been like fine, be like, wow, we've really arrived. Like I remember the first time I saw like a celebrity, the cover of a tabloid be like, this famous gay celebrity, this gay male celebrity and his husband are divorcing. And I was like, we've got gay divorce news, guys. Just like reality show contestants, just like A-listers, like, throw a Julia Roberts up there and like what their marital life is like. This feels like equality.
Yeah.
We've got gay divorce news.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. It's like when you can mess up and that's like chill, and I feel like that is great. And I think,
because like stakes are fucking, like, it can be cool, it can be rewarding, but like it's a lot to ask of you to be like, hey, this special was really personal. Do it again. Be as personal. Yeah, but like back to back. Don't you take your foot off their necks. You get out there and show them what you're capable of. You're like, I don't want to. I don't want to right now. Yeah. Please leave me alone.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's also the thing of like, there's also the pressure if you're in a community to be like, oh yeah, I loved it.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved it. It was so good. And,
I love Love Simon.
Everything
of course I do.
Right, like, okay.
Guys love it.
Yeah. And like there should be the ability to actually have your opinion too, and then not feel like you're gonna take it all down with you, and then people are gonna come after you, which totally, of course, that happens too still. So I think, it would, as we always say, I think it's just nice to have more volume. Let's just toss in some more things, get some more data points in there, just be part of the crowd, Don't look at me. That would be great.
Don't look at me.
Please, I'm just one.
Now, as you, I guess my sort of concluding question, do you find, like with, these early points of identification being like My Neighbor Totoro and Lilo and Stitch, does animation still hold the same kind of pull for you as it did when you were younger? Or does it serve you in the way that it used to? And does live action serve you in the way that animation does? Even as an adult now.
Oh, man. Yeah, I am still such an animation head, I think. I can't say, like, I've gotten deep into, like, anime, but I definitely, like, because I've written for a lot of animated shows recently, and it was kind of not by, like, deliberate. I mean, I think also when you get in that world, you're just more likely to work in that world. But, but I realized, I think that's just kind of, like, was always a thing that maybe I started with, and so kind of dug its claws in. But it's really just like, sometimes it is better, I think. I love Pixar, too. And I think there's just so many things that they did so well that they had to maybe do a little extra work because it had to be family friendly, but also like connect on a larger level because they wanted to tell a universal story. So that still is there. Live action for sure. I mean, there's so many movies that have more like adult context, of course, that I am like, can gravitate towards more now that I'm an adult. But that's just me. Yeah.
That's just me. I like live action movies.
Yeah. Just grown up me.
Just kind of a niche interest of mine.
Right. No longer a baby. But yeah, I think it's I do come back to it, and now maybe more proudly than before I realized like, oh shoot, I haven't watched there's oh god, I haven't seen The Godfather. Oh god, I'm like all embarrassed because I work with any time you're here you meet a lot of film buffs.
Yeah.
Like, oh god, I haven't seen Saving Private Ryan. But I definitely am like more proudly owning that I do love animation.
Well, I think it's your time.
Thank you.
I think it's your time then.
It's about time. Yes, finally.
It's only been several decades.
Yes, just I have to wait a few more years.
Well, Sierra, thank you so much for coming on the show and taking the time to talk to us. I really do appreciate it. And again, I'm so glad we could just close the circuit on our different parts of our lives that apparently intersect with one another.
Right. Talk about our time. It is here. We are here.
Thank you again to Sierra Katow. Her comedy special is called FUNT, and you can watch or listen pretty much anywhere you want, and we will put a link to that in the show notes. Sierra will also be representing Los Angeles in an episode of a brand new PBS documentary series called Roots of Comedy with Jesus Trejo. You can look out for her episode in early July. And now, that one quick thing before I go. Like I said, I don't love to make this a space for self-promotion. You listened to me for an hour. That's quite self-promotional. But the podcast screen drafts, of which I am, apparently I'm now a Hall of Fame GM. I've been on 10 times. 10 times. You guys, I'm averaging, for the regular kinds of episodes, 3 hours per appearance on that show. And that doesn't count That does not count the more than 6-hour apiece marathons that the like mega drafts I've done with them have included. So my God, so many, it's like at least it's like 50 hours of screen drafting, I'm betting you, over 10 episodes, which is wild. But the next episode I'm going to be on, it has premiered this week. It should already be out. It is about movies that have been booed at Cannes. Me and Darren Franich, who has been a GM more than 20 times on the show, we combine forces for a competitive / collaborative creation of a list of the top 7 films within the prescribed theme. The theme being movies booed at Cannes since 1990. Important caveat. There are some heavies on that list. There are movies like Marie Antoinette. There are 4, I think, Lars von Trier titles. There are 2 David Lynch titles, maybe 3. There's so like movies like Crash, movies like Antichrist, movies like The Neon Demon and Personal Shopper, masterpieces I don't know, movies like Dancer in the Dark and Irreversible. So things that you've heard of that have caused a stir, that have caused sensation, that have caused scandal, perhaps. Movies like Crash, movies that have caused a lot of head scratching, like Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, and then a lot of quiet European stuff like Palermo Shooting, you know, could just be like a wander through artsy independent cinema. And this was it was such a fun list to make, and the reason I'm pushing it is because it's sort of out of type for me. As one of the hosts and creators, Clay Keller, said while I was doing it, I normally lean toward the pop cinema. That is very much my wheelhouse. I am an appreciator of anything. I'll watch anything. I want to like everything, but I am very much a pop cinema devotee, and that is sort of my calling card. But this, you know, the far reaches of the Cannes Film Festival, where movies get booed and ovated for minutes upon minutes at a time. The Neon Demon is on this list of booed movies, but it also got like a 15-minute standing ovation. We have a lot of fun. If you've ever wanted to listen to the absolute most, just get pedantic with it, deep dive movie podcast conversation, Screen Drafts is it, because it's hours long, man, and we're going all in. And, you know, Might we mention The Da Vinci Code? A movie that it's not inexplicable that Da Vinci Code was booed at Cannes. It's inexplicable that Da Vinci Code played at Cannes. Are you serious? Like, come on with that. The Tree of Life. What will I say about The Tree of Life? Will there be anything to say about The Tree of Life? The Paperboy from Lee Daniels. What could we possibly have to say about that movie? Grace of Monaco? Grace of Monaco starring Nicole Kidman? It's all on the table. Lost River, the Nicholas Winding Refn masterpiece? ? Depending on who you ask. It's the movies are all over the place. The conversation is joyful. It is silly. It is at points serious and moving. So yeah, check out Screen Drafts, support the podcast ecosystem. People out here just trying to make fun stuff for us all to enjoy in pod form when you have absolutely hours worth of free time to fill. Yeah, so that's it. Today's one quick thing is about me. So thank you for listening to the whole show and to that final note. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at FeelingSeenPod or send us an email at feelingseen@MaximumFun.org. If you want to follow me, I am Jorcrew on Twitter. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. This show is produced by Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows,
supported directly by you.